So happy to be here, and thank you to net.America. Thank you to ICF for organizing this panel, which is focused on youth apprenticeship and career pathways in the energy industry. It is an amazing time, to be, talking about apprenticeship in green jobs, in good, clean energy jobs, and such as cable splicing and wind turbine technician and EV installation technician. And we're just excited to be here to talk about some of these things. I took my wife bought an electric vehicle, and I took a ride to DC last week, and I can tell you we had a difficult time finding charging stations out there. So I'm hoping that some of our apprentices get engaged in this industry and soon, so that we could have a little smoother sailing for those of us with electronic vehicles. We're also going to talk about youth apprenticeship as a workforce development strategy, and how it can help employers to meet those demands. So we have a great panel here today. Grant Schmelzer, who is the CEO of the Independent Electrical Contractors of Chesapeake. Michael Hecker, who's the Safety and Training Manager for Tri-M Group. Sheehan Twomey, who's an electrical apprentice at the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory. Michael Kozik, he is the motor generator engineer and a mentor at the Princeton Physics Laboratory. So without further ado, I think the best place to start here is to talk to our apprentices or our apprentice and find out a little bit about the apprentice perspective. So I'd like to start with you, Sheehan.
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about your experience as an apprentice? Tell me kind of what motivated you to become an apprentice, and how did you hear about apprenticeship? I did an apprenticeship too, and I didn't even know about it until folks said sign those apprenticeship jobs. So I'm curious to how you found out about it, and what's been a little bit about your experience so far.
Yeah, I first learned about the PPPL apprenticeship during a presentation info session that was given at Mercer County Technical Schools. I was a student there at the time that the presentation took place, and everything about the program, from the logical structure like earning while you learn, to the highly specialized training and skill set that you will learn, that motivated me to apply. Entering into the program was pretty favorable from a perspective of someone like myself. I started the apprenticeship when I was 19 years old. So, pretty much just out of high school, wanted some structure in my life. Do we go to college? Do we just continue working? The apprenticeship didn't have any formal education requirements or work experience requirements. Certainly those could help you get the job, but there was no strict requirements, so pretty much open to anyone. The starting pay was promising, with like structured raises built into the progression of the program. So pay is important, and the educational aspect of the apprenticeship. Not only are you going to be engaging in a career and a place to work, but you're going to be learning the entire way, and that learning is paid for, and it's tightly integrated into what you're going to be learning in the field. So the RTI, the related technical instruction, and the OJT, on the job training hours of the apprenticeship, really mesh together to create a good opportunity for someone.
It sounds exciting. The Princeton laboratory. It sounds so exciting. So tell me how did you how did you start, and what skills are you learning, and how do you see these skills that you're learning now as going to be part of your future?
Yeah, I came into the apprenticeship with some basic residential electrician skills, but those quickly developed into more specialized skills that are used largely outside of the residential realm. What we work on here at the laboratory doesn't exist many other places. As far as like high voltage switchgear and other basic electrical pieces of equipment, of course they exist, but the whole grand scheme of things, this whole system is very unique. So what I work on and learn every day is pretty specialized. That ranges from like drive systems and rectification, and into other like smaller electronics and diagnostics and controls.
Okay, great. So that's fantastic. So can I think we're going to shift over to Grant. So Grant, could you tell us a little bit about, because of course we need companies, we need industry to sponsor these apprenticeships. So could you talk a little bit about? I know IEC Chesapeake has been very much involved, particularly in the state of Maryland, on advancing youth apprenticeships. Could you tell me a little bit about the work that you're doing and your experience in the youth apprenticeship space?
Sure. Thanks, Jim, and thanks for everybody for participating and being here today. About 7 years ago, our organization started to recognize the fact that we had an average age of an apprentice of in their mid to late 20s. We were running about 500 to 600 apprentices at multiple school sites throughout the Mid-Atlantic region. We have 9 different school sites, and our members came to us and said, we need your help. We need you to elevate the recruitment efforts of IEC for us. We have over 200 participating employers in our apprenticeship program. And our board of directors gave me direction, and we hired our first full-time workforce development team member. We're actually in the process of hiring a second workforce development team member because the companies are struggling to meet labor demands, and they really can't provide the outreach efforts individually. So they looked at the association to provide that. So we started to have conversations in Maryland about what's working and what's not working. We participate in Skills USA, which is a national high school contest. We're the state sponsor in Maryland and Virginia of the Industrial Motor Control Contest, along with in Maryland, the electrical wiring. And while our career technology and education or K through 12 system is producing some candidates, they're just not producing enough. So we said, what can we do differently? And we began to recognize, and really post-COVID, it's really come to become very evident that there are a group of young people who are looking at, like our apprentice just said here on this conference, for some structure. They're looking for opportunity. So we started in one county in Maryland, and we basically started a recruitment campaign for rising seniors, so students who are in between their junior and senior year, who have basically met most of their graduation requirements. And we reinvented what was working so well in the 70s and 80s. And we started a school to apprenticeship program. And the individuals the students work in between their junior and senior year during their summer. So they're working, getting that OJT or OJL out on the job site full time during the summertime. And then when school starts back up in the fall for their senior year, they work from start time to lunchtime, and then they return to take their courses that are needed for graduation. And they're getting paid while they're still in high school. The 5th day, instead of reporting to the job site, they actually come to our training center and they take year 1 of their apprenticeship program during their senior year. So by the time a high school senior graduates high school, they are going to accrue 1 year of related instruction and anywhere between 450 and 1,100 hours of on-the-job training or on-the-job learning. And when they graduate high school, they transition to full-time employment. a year 2 for their related instruction, and they lag a little bit behind on their on-the-job training. And what this has allowed the organization and our member contractors to do is we've slowly been lowering the average age of an entry-level apprentice. The program, and when we started it, we had to have conversations with the employers about the mentorship part, again, as the apprentice just said. And for many of these young people, this was really their first job. So we had to do some prep with them, expectations out on the job site, communication with their employers. There's a lot of the first year we got thrown a lot of curveballs because there were a lot of professional development days that the schools were closed, but the students could work full time. So we communicated that to the employers. Also during winter breaks, spring breaks, those type of things, the opportunity for those individuals to work full time. So this coming graduation cycle, so think June of 2023, we'll have 13 students that started 4 years ago with us in the school to apprenticeship program, that 90% of them are still with their employers that they worked with in high school, and they'll be graduating the 4-year electrical apprenticeship program. We've expanded that to 6 counties in Maryland. We've also expanded a pre-apprenticeship version of this into the District of Columbia, working with DC Public Schools. And we are having conversations in Virginia as well to continue to expand it. And we're continuing to expand it to build capacity in Maryland as well. So while we're working with 6 counties, there are 2 or 3 other counties that we're working with, which may jump up very quickly to another 6 or 7. And there's 24 school systems in Maryland. So we're working with roughly about 25%. Our goal in the next 2 years is to have 100 high school seniors in this school to apprenticeship model working for our employers. Now, for our employers that are participating in this event, one of the unintended consequences, which is very, very positive, is these students who are enrolled in the school to apprenticeship program, they start talking to their friends, or their friends start asking questions. So we start getting some high school graduates that are looking to get into the program, which has been really a nice benefit. Again, getting that average age down, we're getting that. So we're down to the in the sweet spot of the mid-20s to low 20s. My hope is that we can get that even lower. And I would love to call it advanced placement, because everybody knows that terminology in our K through 12 system, but Princeton has the copyright on that, and I don't think they would be too friendly on that of calling it AP. But this really is advanced placement for the trades.
It's fantastic. Thanks so much, Grant. This is amazing. Just a little, could you just tell me a little bit more about how, I mean, has the appetite changed for employers? As you know, I guess because of the labor market, they were able to attract older and a little bit more experienced people. Has the attitude changed by some of your participating employers, and with more acceptance towards the high school students and the youth apprentices?
Absolutely. It takes what I share with our participating employers is just take one to start, see how it goes. Because once they generally take one, the experiences for almost all of them have been so positive, where I'll say right after the holidays every year for the last several years, the employers are contacting us now to say, hey, when are interviews going to start? We want to make sure we get our school to apprentice. We want to interview candidates. So it's been really nice that the employers have recognized it. I'll say it's extremely labor intensive for my team and our staff, because we are selling something at the end of the day. So we have to address things like the safety requirements and safety waivers. In Maryland, it's MOSH. In Virginia, it's VOSH. Also having to deal with a new wrinkle in this that we didn't anticipate was we have a lot more interaction with parents, because we are dealing with younger people than we've traditionally been dealing with. Making the parents feel comfortable that their child is going to be in a safe and recognized field of study. So we have open houses right before we start accepting applications to allow the parents to come over to the facility and tour the facility and meet with a couple of employers and also meet with the team here so that they feel comfortable. So you really do have to sell it and market it appropriately, and make sure that there's open dialogue and open lines of communication. The other, I'll say, unintended consequence of our school to apprenticeship program is in most of our 9 locations, we are affiliated with community colleges. So we also dangle the carrot in front of both the parent and the student that upon completion of the apprenticeship program, they can obtain credits towards their associate's degree. I will say to our audience, that's a bigger carrot for the parents versus the students. The students, as we're seeing this grow and as students are graduating, they're looking at how can I make more money? And then that leads into industry recognized credentials above apprenticeship in areas of medium voltage, low voltage credentials. There's a slew of them in the electrical industry. So for the students, it's about earning more credentials so they can increase pay. But for the parents and grandparents, it's about, well, can they still get a college, degree off this? And the answer is yes.
Well, thanks, Grant. It's so informative, and so it's great to hear of that kind of change going on in the industry. And particularly, I'm so glad you mentioned parents. I'm so glad you mentioned the, college credit. I mean, I know even in the unionized sector, a lot of those folks are getting accredited to offer to offer college credit. So the industry is really changing, and I think it's a benefit to everybody. It's a win-win, really, because you don't have to make that choice now between apprenticeship and college. You can do both. And I did both, but they were kind of separate entities when I was younger. So, but now it's great to see that integration of education and training is really happening out there. So I want to pivot a little bit to the energy industry. So, and I want to talk a little bit about, Michael, can you talk a little bit about the change that's going on in the energy industry? Particularly when we're talking about EV installers, as I mentioned, and some of the newer occupations in the industry, and how these are either developed or even developing and forming as new occupations, or looking at existing occupations.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen a little bit of a pivot towards the building automation sector, our network services sector, infrastructure, and distribution teams, all working on the same types of projects they had been doing, the same physical installations, but for different markets. So we've seen a big push back towards solar installs. We have teams now working on megawatt facilities, 6 megawatt facility up in Maine. We've got a 6 megawatt facility going in up in New Hampshire. And we've really seen a push back towards it, which we stepped away from for a good number of years, at least here in Pennsylvania. Teams are going and getting certifications by manufacturers and in different industries to make sure that they're meeting the industry requirements. Our building automation teams are monitoring those installations, monitoring buildings' energy consumptions, working on strategies to reduce them, all while our electrical construction teams are, like you said, working on electric vehicle charging stations, which require different credentials depending on the manufacturers that's being installed. But yeah, we have seen a big push towards continuing that education that these electricians and line persons get to help them stay on top of industry trends. So where historically industries will rise and fall. We'll see a push sometimes in education. Sometimes we'll see a push in healthcare. Right now, we're seeing a big push in that energy sector and helping employees gain the skills they need to stay on top of it, and helping us as a company be profitable and strong in those areas.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's really so interesting to see what's going on in the industry, particularly with what's happening on the Hill right now, with the with the new package of investments for for clean energy that's happening right now. So we're going to see if it gets through. It very well may, and it's going to really change the landscape a bit. So we're excited about that. Folks in Washington are certainly. So let's, we talked about, oftentimes insurance companies drive development of standards or credentials. Have you seen, any newly developed industry credentials? I know we were talking a little bit about credentials earlier. I ran a healthcare credentialing agency for a while. So, why do you think there's this big push about industry credentials, and how is it going to affect the clean energy industry?
Yeah, we've seen a push towards standardized certifications. In the network space, there's been groups like BICSI that have globally recognized standards that allow individuals to move country to country and do international projects, which was great. But we've seen lately not just state licensure to help standardized credentialing, but also nationwide credentials, such as we talked a little bit about medium voltage cable splicing. We've seen state or nationwide standardization of or adoption of an existing credential that more and more utility companies are picking up and moving forward with. But I think that as companies grow their footprint, as companies or as businesses struggle to find contractors capable of doing some of these newer projects, that nationwide credentialing will be helpful to allow companies like me based out of Pennsylvania to travel up to Maine, travel up to New Hampshire to execute projects that help customers achieve their goals and really help us achieve ours. In the process, giving apprentices and journey persons opportunities to expand their abilities as a professional and pick up some extra skill sets, ultimately making them a more valuable and more desirable player in the industry. So we've seen insurance companies pick up. I've seen owners becoming more informed as to what they want as far as their contractors working on their facilities. We've seen huge pushes in the safety space. We've seen big pushes in technology, building automations, energy monitoring. All of these things require advanced training above and beyond what apprenticeship provides, but ultimately apprenticeship is preparing individuals for this lifelong learning that they're really stepping into.
Thanks so much, Michael. That's wonderful. And to be honest, the landscape is changing so much that, I know when I went through my apprenticeship, it was so important to have those skilled people there. And it wasn't even just from a technology point of view or how the landscape is changing with new credentials or new tasks. It was about how I make it through work, how I make it through life in some cases even. That's the part of the apprenticeship program that kind of goes, often unnoticed because it happens behind the scenes. But mentorship is a crucial component, to helping apprentices complete the program. And I want to bring Sheehan back and also Michael, the other Michael, to talk about the mentorship aspect of the program. And Michael, as a mentor, how do you see your role in supporting in the lab, and what advice would you give to other potential mentors?
Right. So as a mentor at PPPO, it's my task to ensure that the apprentices hit the ground running in the energy industry. We have a 475 MVA generator that supplies our experiment. But I extend my knowledge of several disciplines, mainly electrical engineering, but I do a lot of mechanical stuff and a lot of facilities things in the way of OJT training, whiteboard explanations, and of course, roundtable discussions with the whole team. The team building is very, very important. So in addition to all that, we also provide the environment that is very constructive in the areas of what professionalism means in the energy industry. The criticality of quality work in the field, and how that makes everything just so much easier down the road. And of course, an environment of safety. Safety obviously is a very big key role when you're working with high voltage, low voltage, and everything that goes into it. A good mentor is one that's willing to understand how an apprentice actually learns. Everybody's just a little bit different, and therefore every apprentice learns a little bit differently, and you really have to change your mindset to know where their pitfalls are, and what you need to do to make things as clear as possible. Plainly get to know your apprentice is a big factor. Make them a part of your team outright. Don't sit them on the sidelines, hold my tools, go do this, get them involved. Encourage your team to get them involved in the training process. You can't be with your apprentice 100% of the time. It's not a possibility. You have other things, just writing emails, so getting your team to encourage your apprentice to keep learning, to ask questions. The people at PPPO, we don't seclude anybody, and so them joining the team from day one, this also means that they're going to be a part of the team in the pre-apprentice duration of that, where we evaluate them, they evaluate us. And a big thing that I've seen is, especially in the beginning, encouraging apprentices to ask questions, even the small, obvious ones, where they might think they know exactly what's going on, and it's the exact opposite. So even asking questions or asking them questions about what they think is happening, what they think, whatever the day's plan is, what they think is going on.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate that really a lot. It's funny when I'm out on the stump talking about apprenticeship, and I talk about innovation as well. And one of the things I say is, this is like it's like having a place where you can ask questions, having a place where, typically you don't want to go up to your boss and say, something that you think might be stupid, right? But so you'll think twice about it. But in an apprenticeship standpoint, you're there to learn. You're there to ask questions, right?
Yeah.
So and that is one of those things. And even Mike on the other side of the coin, some of these apprentices like Sheen over there are really, really bright, and they can come up with things. I'd say 19 times out of 20, when we asked our engineer who was, giving us instruction during my apprenticeship, and they'd say, oh, you just laugh and they say, oh yeah, go ahead, try it and see, let me know tomorrow what happens. Right. And, the thing, it looked like a bomb hit it. But every one of those times they might say, well, we never really thought about doing it that way. Let's take a look at it. And so it adds to that innovation. And that's what I said. Shin, do you want to comment on that at all?
Yeah, that is like spot on and very relevant. Just last week, troubleshooting our rectification system, there is a pretty in-depth and complicated electronic fault detecting subsystem. When faults occur, this system recognizes it, shuts power off. There's a subsequent of actions that occur, but we have a glitch with this fault detector. The lead techs are troubleshooting, and like you said, 19 out of 20 times they are right and their direction is the one to follow. But this was that 1 out of 20th time where I was like, well, hey guys, I think that this IC chip is the one that's bad. We've been replacing that on a bunch of other boards, and a lot of our equipment is 40, 50 years old. If it's expired on other boards, let's replace it here. We replaced it and the problem was solved. That's the 1 out of 20th time, but it's true. You have to ask questions. A skeptical mind is a healthy one. That's how you're going to learn. So,
yeah, it's fantastic. Mike, any comment on that?
I'm like, as you said, Sheehan's one of our brightest. I feel like I helped in that aspect. But yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I don't want to know everything, but I want to make sure they're as skeptical as possible in the field that they can come up with more creative solutions. They're the future where they need to be a little bit better than us. So them having the creative solutions, the better ideas, that's how we know we can kind of step back a little bit and let them take the reins down the road. That's the whole idea, right? To have the mentors lead the apprentices into the field and have them take over after I retire.
Well, that's fantastic too. And Sheehan, if you're, if you're in the Princeton Plasma Physics Laboratory, you're definitely smarter than I am. So I can tell you that. So I'm real happy to have you here and happy to discuss these, this wonderful opportunity that you have. I'm just going to throw out a few general questions to everybody. We talked a little bit, just if we could talk briefly about the whole college credit thing. Does that, I mentioned that it's great timing now where you have the opportunity to both, even take college credits or in some cases even get a degree while you're doing your apprenticeship. Is that important to folks? I know it's important to parents. We talk just a little bit about that if anybody wants to comment?
So I'll talk about it for a hot second here. One of the things that we're recognizing in our school to apprenticeship program is that the community college system is set up for adult learners who are working. So when we start talking with our potential school to apprentices, we do have students that their senior year, they don't step back into their high school that they came from, because all of our community colleges here in Maryland have agreements in place with their counterparts in K through 12. So we are leveraging additional resources that are available if the student would like to do that. We give them the option. So it really has evolved. We didn't anticipate that when we first started this. So again, we've learned that the applied learning that our young people, I'll say, crave, rather than just sitting in the classroom like they do in traditional K through 12, has really enabled us to allow them and help them excel in their environment. So I think that it has been useful in terms of utilizing the resources that the community colleges or colleges have to offer. Also, the benefits that students can take advantage of in terms of additional support mechanisms like math labs, and in our industry, math is very prevalent. So if they're struggling a little bit on the math, leveraging that and working with our community college partners to design programming and assistance where it's applicable to the electrical industry in our case. And I think that can be applied to HVAC, mechanical, whatever the a skill trade is. So for us, it's been very beneficial. What we've also seen, and our state director in Maryland has actually pulled the numbers, is that there's roughly about 5%, and I know that seems like a low percentage, of individuals that have gone through apprenticeship and actually obtained their associate's degree. And part of what Maryland's moving towards is the state creating assistance in terms of tuition to allow apprentices who complete their apprenticeship program to get the necessary credits towards the associate's degree, so that they can have both. And Jim, you said it early, it's not an and or, it's a and. So people are able to do it. What we also recognize, and this gets back to, I'll say, the K through 12 system, is a lot of our high schools across the country, they have high school or where you're going to college days. So one of the unique things that we've done here in Maryland is the state created an Apprenticeship Maryland banner. So that's hanging in the guidance department offices. We also have provided all of our school to apprentices with t-shirts. So when you wear your college t-shirt today at your high school, they have their apprenticeship t-shirt. So we're trying to combat some of that with the marketing of that. We're right there with them.
Yep.
So I think that's been helpful. And again, to me, it's all about marketing and to provide the individual apprentices with opportunities and let them make their decision. We're not here to force anything down their throats.
No, thanks, Grant. And we're just about to, unveil some of our, new branding. Actually, it's kind of old branding, but still repurposed pretty soon. So we're excited about that. So keep your eyes out. And thanks for that. Anybody else want to comment on the college credit stuff?
I just want to add from a global standpoint, we have a lot of apprentices who strive to be project managers or strive to be to take a role outside of the field. Years past, that was very direct type linear progression. We'd see apprentices become journey persons, become foreperson, become superintendent, and often take project management roles. A lot of the project management certifications that exist now are requiring an associate's degree plus field experience or associate's degree or field experience. So allowing apprentices to achieve their journey person's certificate along with up to 30 something credits towards an associate's degree has allowed a lot of our apprentices to take night school programs, taking advantage of tuition reimbursement programs, oftentimes offered by employers, to achieve their associate's degree at little to no cost to them, allowing them to be prepared to step into a project management role or a leadership role within the organization a little bit sooner has been a push. So I know, Grant, they said 5%. I see as we've been moving forward with our apprentices, I'm seeing a bigger and bigger and bigger push for it because people are looking to take those leadership roles, and that's kind of a quick path towards that type of career opportunity.
That's great. Thanks so much, Michael. I do want to, we haven't really focused on the diversity issue, and I think it's quite important. I mean, we're sitting here, looking at how can we make some of these new opportunities, particularly in the clean energy industry. How do we make some of these opportunities more more open to folks with economic barriers or to equal opportunity, to underrepresented groups, or even to individuals with ex-offenders. So, I mean, are there opportunities in this industry, and particularly for diversity? I mean, this administration really prizes its work in diversity and walking the walk when it comes to jobs and apprenticeship opportunities. So I just wanted to talk about, have you seen any, particularly you, Grant, maybe, have you seen any promising practices, that would help us overcome some of these barriers towards, getting diverse individuals into some of these youth apprenticeship programs?
Yeah, so that's a great question. At IEC, we just had our state of Maryland audit. We currently are in the top probably 5 apprenticeship programs in the state with over 40%. 40% of our apprentices are apprentices of color or females. That continues to grow for us. From our standpoint, the recruitment, we're not specifically targeting any specific groups. I will say we do try and recruit as many women into our industry as possible, and that continues to be a struggle for us, as most construction programs do struggle with recruiting women. In our low voltage or telecommunications program, we're seeing more females getting involved in that, so that's a positive sign. I actually have 2 of our apprenticeship instructors are actually African American women who to teach for us, and they are champions. We bring them out with us whenever their schedule permits, so that individuals can see people like them, so that they can relate. So we've been very fortunate in that sense that that hasn't been a challenge for us in terms of recruiting minorities into our apprenticeship program. The one thing I will say is that, as you know, other programs or businesses, you have to get out into the community. That's the bottom line. You cannot be passive. Internet's a great thing. LinkedIn's a great thing. Indeed's awesome, but it doesn't displace getting into the community and talking within the community which you're seeking to serve. And that's really what we've been able to do, and we've been doing that for decades, quite frankly.
Thanks, Grant. Is anybody else having any successes with recruiting? Underrepresented populations, could be women or people of color or others.
We've partnered with several local cities and towns to sponsor programs that supports development in local areas to help employ people from the communities where the buildings are happening. We've had great success with that. I think, Grant, just to build on what you were talking about with getting a diverse and female workforce, the construction sites are changing. It's becoming a lot more accepting for female electricians and construction workers, to the point where the bathrooms it was just little things where porta potties used to have horrible writings on the inside of them, and there was one group for the whole job site, where that's starting to go away, and there's gender specific and neutral bathrooms on construction sites, which is something that you didn't expect to see 10, 15 years ago. But the construction industry is starting to get a higher female population on job sites and becoming more accepting to it. So the industry itself is changing. So like Grant's saying, we need to support that by changing our recruiting efforts, changing our approach to populating our future.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Okay, we're down to the last question. And really, folks, feel free to chime in. Many folks talk about pre-apprenticeships as something as kind of informal or soft skills training, or it could be as formal, and it could have significant work-based learning experience. Could you guys talk a little bit about the need for a pre-apprenticeship in your industry and what makes it a quality program?
Right. So for PPPL, we have a 4-week stint where we have pre-apprentices come in. We go through a nice interview process. Actually, this round of pre-apprentices that came in, majority of the interviewees were female. So it was a really nice thing to see and getting a lot of different perspectives. We actually hired on one of them to be within the pre-apprentice program that we're running right now. It's a perfect way for them to see what we do. We're obviously looking at how they work in the field, how they're getting along with everybody, how they're getting about taking in some of the information, because it is going to be a 3 to 4 year stint where they're going to be here for some time. So we want to make sure that they're good to go. But we also want to make sure that they're comfortable learning this kind of field, and at PPPL, we have mechanics, we have electrical, electronics, pipe fitters, they do everything, and so getting them in and having them look at everything and just say, okay, I can do this, this is, I'm fully in. And then they go through their application process, and it's, thankfully we have 100% of pre-apprentices applying, and it's a really great thing to see.
That's fantastic, Mike. Thanks so much. Anybody else want to comment on pre-apprenticeship?
Yeah, I'm just like, college isn't for everyone. This apprenticeship might not be for everyone. So the pre-apprenticeship it's a good way for, that like post high school graduate or a young individual to scope out what the apprenticeship is going to feel like. Maybe you want to do an apprenticeship, but the pre-apprenticeship gives you an idea of, maybe I want to do it with another contractor or with another company. It's a nice way to test the waters without fully committing, because it is a commitment. It's a 4-year commitment with school and work every day. So you want to make sure that, what you're getting into is something that you can sustain and that you're engaged in and want to learn, most importantly.
Well, thanks so much, Ian. And I think that was perfectly said. And I think I'm going to leave you with the last word. So that's, fantastic. I want to thank everyone again. Thank net.America and ICF for putting this together. It was a wonderful panel and tremendous expertise. And I learned a lot today. And Sheehan, so glad you're progressing in your apprenticeship. And you guys over there, really keep up the good work, keep up the good fight. And, work more towards getting some of these young folks opportunities. I think that's part of the issue. And I know, the more opportunities we have and the more we connect them with higher learning, and the more we connect them with solid skills and good paying jobs, the better the name apprenticeship is going to have out there. And it already is, taking off like a shot in a lot of places. So we're just so excited to see all this energy, and we're excited to see you folks as practitioners and doing such a tremendous work out there. So thank you so much. And I think we'll turn it back over to the sponsors for questions.